Welcome to On the Block. I'm Ed Wilkinson, and our guest today is Father John Gribowich, who is the newest member of the staff of the Sales Media. I know this is a job you always wanted, Father John.
This is the reason why I became a priest.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not something you asked for, but this is your assignment now. And the bishop has sent you away to do some special studies in preparation. Could you tell us a little bit about how you're preparing to come on board with us?
Well, I mean, when I was asked to be a part of the Sales Media, I didn't really know exactly what that meant, and I didn't really know exactly what it was evolving into as far as a priest. So I had to kind of explore to figure out what skills I might need to work on in order to kind of be able to help to oversee such a massive enterprise, really. Yeah. So that's why I'm back in school, and I'm studying business and leadership out in Berkeley. And I'm out in Berkeley primarily because it's really the hotbed of where things are as far as technology and communication goes. So much innovation, a little bit ahead of the curve, and even as far as how technology is used within the church out there too. So it's a really great environment to be in. So I've been really blessed. I mean, like I said, I never expected this, but it's been a blessing, a real amazing opportunity.
Well, in a sense, you'd never expected to be a priest either. I mean, you came a little bit later in life to the priesthood, right?
Yeah.
What were you doing? How old were you when you were ordained?
Oh, geez, Ed. I guess I was 30.
It's only a few years ago.
35, I guess 35 I was.
All right, so it's a little later than most people would be. What did you do? You worked, you had real jobs before that?
Yeah, I mean, I primarily was in the world of education. I taught for 10 years as a Catholic high school teacher, and I also adjunct as a college instructor, teaching mostly history and theology, philosophy. I also worked in campus ministry in the high school. This was all primarily in Pennsylvania, where I'm originally from. So I guess you could say I was a teacher, but I also did some other things before I actually made the final call to come back into the seminary, including working at a museum in Manhattan. So yeah, I did quite a few things around the block.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned you're from Pennsylvania, from the Lehigh Valley section there, right?
Yeah, that's
Allentown.
Allentown, yeah. Yeah.
So that was the diocese. How was the diocese of Allentown different from the diocese of Brooklyn?
Oh, it's very different in lots of different ways. I mean, just because geographically it's a lot larger, and the churches are more spread out. First off, there's a great divide between the urban area churches in Allentown, Reading, and then really what you could call the upstate coal mining churches, which are really suffering through a very hard time. Those communities have really been decimated because of the industry of coal being out there for a long time. So they have their own sets of challenges, but they do seem to thrive in suburban parishes. So you have urban, rural, and suburban. Brooklyn, it's 100% urban. So a very different feel. And it's actually one of the reasons why I enjoyed being here when I was studying here, and that's why I decided to stay.
Did you grow up in a family that was particularly close to the church?
Yes, I have kind of a little bit of an interesting family story. I was born as an only child. Both of my parents died fairly early on. My dad, not so much. I mean, he died when I was just about to go back into the seminary. So that was about 6 years ago. But my mom died when I was 15 years old. And so that was very difficult. She died in a car accident. But both of them were very devout in their own way. And they really gave me a great sense of the faith, how attractive the faith was. It was not a very stuffy type of household, so to speak. So I really could not have asked for better parents growing up. But then, like I said, once you lose parents at an earlier age, other people start kind of taking in parental roles. And so I can say now I have like an adopted family, and I have sisters who I really consider to be sisters, and that's just really a great blessing for me.
Did you grow up in Catholic schools? Did you go to Catholic schools?
I went to Catholic grade school, but I went to public high school. I went to Catholic college, and then I did get some other further degrees. So I had a mixture of both Catholic and public school.
Did you ever think of becoming a priest when you were?
Oh, I thought about being a priest since my earliest times of thinking about what I wanted to do when I grow up. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely say back to first grade. Yeah, I mean, I was very much attracted to just, I guess, the external stuff of everything. But as time went on, and interestingly enough, I got more interested in the priesthood. I don't know what this means, but after I started having a serious girlfriend in high school, that was really a great relationship. But her parents were also very devout, and they kind of exposed me to other aspects of the church. And I actually kind of grew my faith more in that relationship. And so that kind of got me thinking about the priesthood some more. So it was a very long, winding road, and I don't want to bore you with all the details. But...
No, those are the interesting.
All right, okay, cool.
No, we've had other priests on the show who have talked about relationships that they've had with women when they were young, girls, and the decisions that they had to make and what it was like. So you said you learned a lot from that relationship.
Sure.
What did you think you took away from that, and why didn't you stay in a relationship like that? Why did you decide to do something different?
Well, it's hard to say exactly, what exactly was not right about it, or maybe like how things could have been different or anything like that. But I think you just know when you're in a state whether something's right or wrong. And there was nothing but good things in that relationship. I mean, great girl. I mean, I know she's married now with kids, and very faithful woman. And I think that the Lord puts certain people in your life to kind of help work on certain parts of you and help you to kind of grow deeper in your relationship ultimately with God. And so that there's really nothing that's, there's no right or wrong in a certain sense when you're just kind of being present in the moment and seeing how God's working through the moment. And I think I was able to just kind of see that while the goodness of that relationship was not drawing me into marriage, it was drawing me somewhere else, and we both knew that. I mean, so it was not like it wasn't like a heartbreak.
So you mentioned though that you always thought about becoming. Well, the idea was there when you were a kid,
Right.
But why were you so resistant to it then later on? I mean, why didn't you go through this prep seminary? We go to the college seminary, go through the system.
Honestly, I just like girls. So I mean, that was it. I mean, I was in high school, and I was in the bands, and I loved music a lot, and I mean, it just wasn't really kind of thought to be kind of cool to be talking about the priesthood in high school. So that's just kind of what happened. I mean, yeah, I mean, but I would say all through grade school, I was definitely very much focused on it. But both my parents too, they were very supportive of me being a priest from early on, so they never dissuaded me. But I think they also wanted to make sure that I was doing it for the right reasons, and so they would encourage me to kind of explore everything in a very wholesome way. So, but that's it. I mean, so I guess I wasn't a lifer because I got a little detoured. So, yeah.
What was college like for you? Where'd you go to college?
Small Catholic college in Allentown, outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania, called DeSales University, which
Well, that was prophetic.
I know. Francis DeSales has been really a part of my spiritual life for a very long time, and I loved being there. It was a small school. They had a really great art and a theater and film department there too, so I liked being involved with that. I studied history and theology. Great community, great group of people. I just really felt like I got a really world-class education for being such a small backwater college.
All right, we're going to take a quick break then we'll be right back. We'll talk with Father John Gribowich today. Stay where you are. We're coming right back to you. Welcome back to On the Block, and we're chatting today with Father John Gribowich. So we were talking about your roller coaster ride there through high school or college.
Yep.
Still, you went to DeSales University and you liked that place. What did you major in?
I was a double major in history and theology.
Okay. But still, even though a priest is in the back of your mind, still you didn't follow that call, right?
Not at that point, no.
Right. You decided to what, teach at that point?
I graduated and I went right into teaching high school. And I was teaching at Allentown Central Catholic High School, right in downtown Allentown. And I really enjoyed it a lot. But it was during that time too that I was just kind of ending that relationship with this girl. It really started from my junior year in high school to about senior year in college. So it was about 4 or 5 years.
Fairly long-term relationship
It was
for those
yeah,
days.
for those days, yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
We were thinking marriage and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So as that was winding down, and then as I was moving into my career as a teacher, I finished that first year, and I loved what I was doing, but I knew the priesthood was still kind of itching at me.
Yeah.
And so I decided at that point to go into the seminary. So I went to the seminary, I guess it was back in 2002 now, but I went to study for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, because that was actually technically where I grew up. So I went to St. Charles Seminary in Philadelphia, but I only lasted a semester as a seminarian. So, and I think that a lot of that was because I still didn't have that girl out of my head, I don't think, I have to admit. And I think that I just wasn't gelling with the seminary culture. I just wasn't feeling it. So I ended up leaving, but I did get my master's degree at the seminary as a lay person. So that's what enabled me to eventually start teaching theology once I had that degree.
Yeah. So how long did you teach then? When you left the seminary, how long did you teach after that?
It was about 10 years.
Yeah.
About 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you find that fulfilling? Did you like
Oh, I
being a
loved it.
teacher?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved teaching. Yeah.
All right. So at what point did the light go off, and all of a sudden, you heard more of a call? I mean, people talk about this call
Yeah.
all the time. I know it's
Right.
not a voice that's yelling out your name, but
Right.
what happened there that you finally said, all right, let's give this another shot?
Yeah, well, I was becoming a little restless as a teacher, not necessarily because I didn't enjoy teaching. It was just that felt like I was still young, and I felt that I could still try to do something else since I wasn't married. So I wanted to go back to school. So I decided to move to New York, because that was kind of a goal I had, I guess maybe since I was very young, thinking that'd be really great to be in New York City.
Sure.
Especially because my mom's side of the family was off in New Jersey, so that was very kind of New York influenced. So I just, believe it or not, I didn't even know where I was going to go to school, what I was going to study, but a friend of mine and I went up to New York one day, and I said, I'm just going to take a shot and just try to find a job and do something different. And I started off by working in a bookstore in Greenwich Village. And I was like, let me just get this regular job, and maybe I could meet people that way, and then try to find another type of job. So, and then also think about going back to school. So it was kind of twofold. Going up to New York was to see, okay, could I do something else other than teach? Could I go and maybe learn something else? So after a while being in that bookstore, I met someone who landed me a job working in development at the Museum of the City of New York.
Oh, that's a great place.
So, yeah, really great place.
Yeah.
And I had a great time there. In fact, I was there during the Catholics in New York exhibition.
Oh,
which was-
sure.
So I played a role in that a little bit. And I was also thinking, okay, I do want to go back to school. I always had a love for art, and especially art history, being very much in history myself. So a friend of mine, he graduated from Pratt Institute, working in the fine arts program. He was a sculptor, and that got me interested in looking at Pratt for art history. So I ended up applying there, and I got into the program, and it was a double program in art history and library science. So I had this love for books, I had this love for art. I was like, let me just try to study this stuff. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, clearly I'm not studying things to make a lot of money, because none of these degrees I had really amount to much as far as the, bringing in money. But fortunately, my dad was still alive at the time, and people that I knew, they were always very supportive of me just kind of being me, and just kind of exploring things and just doing what I felt was right. So I kind of say all this because when I got to Pratt, I ended up studying in Venice for a summer through the program. And it was in Venice, I remember, and that was a good time, let me tell you, not just for studying purposes, but it was a good party time too. But I remember one night just walking alongside one of those canals in Venice, and I was just thinking somehow about my life and all the twists and turns and all the opportunities and all the different people I met and all the skills that I somehow accumulated, and all these other types of twists and turns that I never really processed. And it just came to me, it said, I just don't think I'm going to be truly myself unless I'm a priest. I'm just not that, and that's what it came down to.
Now, were you living in Brooklyn while you were studying?
I was.
Because Monsignor Casado
He
tells me that
Yeah.
he saw you in the church,
Yeah.
and he approached you and said, "What's up, pal?
Oh, yeah.
You've
He was
got to
great.
go."
He was great.
Tell me about the intercession.
He was with me while I was through Pratt. Yeah, I was living right across the street from the church, pretty much, and I would go over there, and I mean, he knew what was up, and he could see certain things, and he has a great personality, and so he really opened up the door for me to knowing what the priesthood in the Diocese of Brooklyn was all about. So I can really thank him for that. And so, but he was good too, because he just kind of gave me space, and eventually worked out.
Yeah.
Eventually worked out.
So when I mean, with all these studies that you had, you decided then to be a priest. You have to go into the seminary and study theology still, or what?
Well, I did have some shortcuts along the way.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about that right now.
Well, that's all right. But I mean, you had your credits, and
Right.
So.
No, I did. I had an MA in theology before I went to the seminary. Yeah.
Right. So what was ordination day like for you then? You remember? What do you remember about the day itself?
It was an awesome day because so many people who played such important roles in all my twists and turns were all there in one spot. It was just amazing to see so many people from so many different parts of my life, from grade school, high school, college, graduate school, work. That was just, to me, it was the foretaste through me of heaven, and I think that was kind of one of the amazing graces of that day, was that all these people came here. And I don't think that it was just simply because they knew me. I mean, of course that was the impetus, but I think that we all knew we were participating in something bigger than any one of us. And that's what sacraments are all about. So it was a foretaste of heaven, and that's what I remember about. In fact, I was hanging out with my sister these last couple of weeks on the road. We were doing this trip, and I said, I don't remember many particular things about the ordination mass, except after I got the oils and I'm holding my hands and I'm walking back to the line or whatever, and I see her, and I gave her the heads up, yeah, I did it. I said that's the only thing I remember, is because apparently it made it on film, and people were like, what was all that head nod for? But I mean, that to me is just a testament to the fact that you don't become a priest on your own. And it's you personally responding to the invitation that Christ puts on your heart. But it's the body of Christ that really is the one that molds it and brings you to that place. And that was, to me, the most moving.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of your special interests and some of your aspirations for the Sales Media Group.
Cool.
But
Cool.
So stay with us. We're with Father John Gribowich today. We're coming right back. Hey, welcome back to On the Block. I'm Ed. This is Father John, and we're having a great conversation about his winding road to the priesthood.
Right.
Well, you have some very special interests, I know, that are really close to you, and one is the Catholic worker. I mean, how did you find the Catholic worker? How did you first get involved with them?
I remember learning about Dorothy Day even when I was in grade school. I mean, she's just a very, one of those popular Catholic figures from the American Church. So I remember hearing about her when I was in grade school, but when I was in college is when I read The Long Loneliness, her autobiography, and it was part of a class on women in theology that I was taking. And that just really opened me up to her and what she was really about, reading her actual words. And then I kind of let it sit on the shelf, literally, the book, and then I revisited it again when I moved to New York. And when I moved to New York, and this was around 2007, I went and read the book again, and kind of almost visiting the places that she would write about and talk about in the streets of Lower East Side. And that's when I just start knocking on the door at the Catholic Worker, where it still is, and I just start to throw myself into it.
You volunteer there?
Yeah.
Well, what is that experience like for you? I mean, what kind of people do you run across there?
Well, everyone. I mean, to me, it's it is a big part of who I am, and I really do think I found my faith, what it means to be a Christian in the midst of the Catholic worker. I think what also kind of primed me for that too was when I was in high school. I worked with the Franciscans at a soup kitchen and shelter in Philadelphia, and that was a really burned out, blown up area of the city. It was tough. I mean, there was prostitution, there was lots of drug addicts, there was mental illness. And seeing that hands-on really did a lot for me, because first off, it challenged me to not necessarily be judgmental about people. And it also helped me to realize that I'm learning how to be a follower of Jesus by listening and learning from the people coming to me, because they had a tremendous faith and I could see that God was working in their lives. And though they were lacking many things, they did have a far deeper relationship with Christ than I did. And I think that to be thrown in those positions, and of course this is what happens at the Catholic worker all the time, to recognize that, you know, yeah, I may come here to serve, but somehow I'm being served far more because I'm being challenged to think outside of the box, and knowing that somehow God doesn't come looking like a holy card.
But you know, a social worker can do that, and you decided to be a priest. What's the difference between being a priest and a social worker? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I never really thought about being a social worker necessarily, but I mean, I think that at the essence of the priesthood is the fact that you're someone who is a conduit between Christ himself and his body, you know. And I think that what the body always needs is healing that can only be found in Christ. So I can offer certain types of healing, maybe through my words or through my actions, which is exactly what a social worker can do. But what I'm able to do as a conduit is actually give people Christ. Not because it's anything to do with me, but just simply because I'm just that intermediate. And in return, I can also bring to Christ, you know, the sorrows, the pains, the hurts, so that there's this kind of mutual back and forth of being able as a priest to realize that you are called to unite yourself to people's sufferings, unite yourself to their brokenness, and to offer that as a priest to Christ. And Christ takes it and brings healing to it. So that is something that a priest does specifically that no one else can do. But then again, it's not because I, John, am doing it. It's simply because Christ allows certain people to be able to bring his graces in a very unique and personal way.
So how do you see that fitting in now with your new role at the Sales Media? I know you're not actually on board yet, but you know, after your studies, you'll be with us full time.
Yeah.
How do you see a priest fitting into being part of our group?
Well, I think that the thing that I really have fallen into is just that, you know, if we're meant to be a force for good, let's say, to Sales Media, meaning that we're here to bring the healing message of Jesus Christ to a broken world, which is, to me, is the most important part of the gospel, that, you know, that we're all broken, we're all sinners, we all fall short of ultimately what God wants us to do. But that's not to make us hopeless, because the good news is that Christ comes to heal us. So the Sales has to be a way to somehow bring that message to the world, well, more locally to our diocese, but really to anyone. And I think that the role of the priest is, in the whole organization, is how are we, as members of the Sales Media, how are we healing the body amongst ourselves? You know, we can only believe in the mission of the Sales Media if we're living the mission with each other as co-workers. I kind of look at the Sales as kind of being like a mini church or a mini parish. And that, you know, I've been asked to kind of be a pastor, and I've been asked to kind of walk with the people who I'm called to be with, and I'm also asked to learn. I mean, especially from you, Ed. I mean, you've been doing this far longer than I've been alive, right? You know what I mean? So, I mean, like, but that's really, I think, the role of the priest into Sales Media, or at least from my way I kind of pick it up. It's not necessary to make me the most skilled at knowing everything about media and technology, but how can we all help each other as employees to be able to live the message that we then want to share through all of our different platforms, through everything that we do, you know? Does it make sense?
Yeah. You know, and I know one of the things that you like to do is you like to listen to music and music as a way of communication, and you're a big fan of Bob Dylan.
Humongous fan, yeah.
One of his big.
Yeah.
What does Bob Dylan say to you about communication and getting a message across? Because he really delivered a message when he. I mean, he was a preacher with music.
It's very true. I mean, Bob Dylan is one of my heroes. There's a lot of people I could say who've been very influential in my life, personally, and I guess even say publicly, and Dylan is one of them. You know, for me, I think that Bob Dylan taps into something deeply spiritual in what he does, musically and lyrically. And I don't think he feels that he's somehow in charge of what he's doing, that he's participating in something that's a gift. So I can resonate with the whole sense of vocation as a priest, with who he is as a singer-songwriter. And I think that what he's done for lots of people is help them tap into something bigger than themselves, whether it's through the music, whether it's through the lyrics. And I think that we're all called, in that certain sense, to tap into something bigger than ourselves, and whatever we're called to do, to realize that we're participating in something very, very, very grand. And that's what gives our particular lives meaning and purpose, when we realize that we don't have to orchestrate it on our own, we don't have to facilitate it on our own, we don't have to do it on our own, that we respond to what's been given and we just give back through that response. And I think that's exactly what Bob has done for 50 years now. I mean, 50 plus years. So, you know, I have to say, I'm not like, I'm a very deep Bob Dylan fan, because I see something very profoundly spiritual that happens in what he does, in his music, and how he actually even executes that music.
Well, we look forward to helping you to communicate the message of the church through the sales media here. Welcome on board.
Oh, it's great being here.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And thank you for being with us today and listening to Father John Gribowich with me. I'm Ed Wilkinson. Thanks for being with us, and we hope to see you again next time.